Before it was New York, before any city existed here, this island had another name, Manahatta. The Lenape people called this place home for thousands of years. They knew every stream, every hill, every shore. 15,000 people lived here in 80 villages. They fished these waters and farmed these hills. The trails they walked through the forest would one day become the streets of a great city. Collect Pond, in the heart of the island, was their gathering place. Fresh water in abundance. They harvested oysters from the bay. The shells piled so high they named a street for them. For generations, this world remained unchanged, an island of forests, waters, and the people who belonged here. Then, in September of 1609, a ship appeared in the harbor. Everything was about to change. Henry Hudson, sailing for the Dutch, had found what he thought was a passage to Asia. He found no passage, but he found something else, a harbor that would change the world. Within 15 years, the Dutch would return, not to explore, but to stay. They called their settlement New Amsterdam. In 1624, the Dutch West India Company sent 30 families to settle on this island. In 1626, Peter Minuit made the most famous real estate deal in history, or so the story goes. 60 guilders worth of trade goods for an entire island. The Lenape didn't believe anyone could own land. Port Amsterdam rose at the island's southern tip, a small outpost in a vast wilderness. But New Amsterdam grew quickly. Beaver fur made it rich. Ships filled the harbor. This was never a homogeneous colony. 18 different languages could be heard on these muddy streets. In 1653, a wooden wall was built across the island to keep enemies out. That wall is long gone, but its name remains. You've heard of Wall Street. Peter Stuyvesant ruled New Amsterdam with an iron fist and an iron leg. He'd lost one in battle. But in 1664, English warships appeared in the harbor. Stuyvesant had no choice but to surrender. Without a single shot fired, New Amsterdam became New York, named for the Duke of York. The Dutch were gone, but their legacy remained in the streets, the buildings, the city's spirit. For a century, New York grew under British rule. Then came a revolution, and the British came back as conquerors. By 1776, New York was the second largest city in the American colonies, and a prize worth taking. The revolution came to New York with fire and defeat. Washington's army was nearly destroyed here. Under cover of fog, Washington evacuated his army across the East River, a miraculous escape. Days later, the city burned, a quarter of New York destroyed. The British would occupy it for 7 years. For 7 years, New York was British. Loyalists flocked here. American prisoners suffered and died in prison ships. In 1783, the British finally left. Washington rode triumphantly back into the city. New York became the first capital of the new nation. In 1789, Washington took the oath here. The capital would move to Philadelphia, then Washington. But New York's destiny lay elsewhere, in commerce. By 1800, 60,000 people lived here. The city was beginning to burst at its seams. A grid was proposed, a plan to organize the island's future growth. Straight lines, numbered streets. The 1820s brought the Erie Canal. Suddenly, New York was connected to the entire continent. The floodgates were open. People, goods, and ambition poured through this city. New York would never stop growing. Over the next 50 years, New York transformed beyond recognition. Millions arrived. Monuments rose. And 2 cities reached across the river to join hands. They came by the millions, fleeing famine in Ireland, fleeing revolution in Germany, seeking a new life. The Lower East Side became the most densely populated place on Earth. Tenements stacked with humanity. Meanwhile, Fifth Avenue glittered with mansions. The Gilded Age, gold on the surface, struggled beneath. In 1858, a radical idea took shape. A great park, carved from the heart of Manhattan. Central Park opened as a democratic space, a place where rich and poor could share the same grass. But the park couldn't solve everything. In 1863, the city exploded in the deadliest riot in American history. The city healed and kept building. In 1869, a new project began, a bridge to Brooklyn. John Roebling died before construction truly began. His son Washington carried on, then fell ill himself. On May 24, 1883, the Brooklyn Bridge opened, the longest suspension bridge in the world. 3 years later, another gift arrived in the harbor. A lady carrying a torch. She would greet the greatest wave of immigration in human history. 12 million people passed through Ellis Island. They came from everywhere: Italy, Russia, Poland, China. They made New York the world city. By 1900, 3 million people lived here. New York was the largest city in America. But the city was running out of room. It could only grow in one direction now: up. The 20th century beckoned. New York was ready for its transformation. The age of skyscrapers was about to begin. In just 30 years, New York would be transformed beyond recognition. A forest of steel and stone would rise toward the clouds. The race to the sky had begun. In 1902, a strange triangular building rose at 23rd Street. They called it the Flatiron. In 1904, the subway opened. New Yorkers could now travel beneath the streets they'd once walked. The city built higher and faster. The Woolworth Building, 60 stories of Gothic cathedral. But growth had a dark side. In 1911, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory burned. 146 dead. The 1920s roared. Jazz filled Harlem. Money flowed like champagne. New York was the capital of the world. A race to the sky began. Who would build the world's tallest building? Two rivals competed. The Chrysler Building won for 11 months. Its Art Deco crown still gleams like a beacon. Then came the Empire State Building, 102 stories, built in just 1 year and 45 days. On May 1st, 1931, President Hoover pressed a button in Washington. The Empire State Building lit up. The Depression emptied the building. They called it the Empty State Building. But New York endured. World War II brought the city back to life. Soldiers departed from these piers and returned as heroes. The post-war boom brought new towers. The United Nations rose on the East River. The world came to New York. Rockefeller Center, Madison Avenue, Park Avenue, glass towers replaced the brownstones of old New York. But in the 1960s, the city began to struggle. Crime rose, jobs left, the future seemed uncertain, and yet, even then, ambition persisted. Downtown, the largest construction project in history, was rising from the landfill. In 1970, the North Tower topped out, 1,368 feet, the world's tallest building. The Twin Towers were controversial. Some hated them. But they became New York. They became us. For nearly 30 years, the Twin Towers stood watch over the city, until a September morning when the world changed forever. September 11th, 2001. 2,977 lives lost. But in the darkness, New York found its light. But New Yorkers did what they always do. They came together, they rebuilt, they refused to break. The rebuilding took years. Debates, delays, designs rejected and redrawn. But finally, a new tower rose. One World Trade Center opened in 2014, 1,776 feet tall. Freedom's height. Below it, the memorial. Two pools where the towers stood, the names of the lost, etched in bronze. The city kept growing. Hudson Yards rose on the west side. The High Line transformed a ruin into a garden. Then came 2020, a pandemic. The streets emptied. Times Square fell silent. New York held its breath. But once again, New York survived. The city came back. It always comes back. That's what New York does. 8 million people live here now, speaking over 800 languages. The world's city. America's city. From Lenape homeland to global capital, 400 years of transformation. And the city is still changing. Every street tells a story. Every building is a memory. Every corner is a threshold between past and future. This is New York. Native land. Dutch colony. British prize. Immigrant gateway. Skyscraper city. Forever changing. Forever New York.